I said I was going to sew them before I came back. I lied. So when you're doing these, sewing these vertical seams, blah, 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 vertical lines that are going to form your pockets at some point when the bag is assembled, at the top of the pocket here, you want to make sure that you not only back tack a few times, but do a little bit of a zigzag like we did it at the top here of the bag handle, because this is going to be a stress point. And if you don't do that, then at some point it might pull off. So make sure you do some zigzagging there a little bit. And I'm going to do that. I've done one side, and this is what it looks like. So I've got a flap here, which will at some point be a pocket. We've got a pocket here, a pocket here, another one here, and the last one over here. And then we do have a seam here at the bottom so that when we put things in our pockets, they don't slide all the way down and go underneath the bag. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and then we're going to start putting it together. All right, I'll be right back. Here's my other side. Now, before we start sewing things together and doing the final assembly on our bag, we want to put our label inside, right? So we're going to take one piece of our lining fabric and my little Made By label, and 2 inches or so from the top in about the center. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but in about the center. I'm going to pin it down. And then I'm going to sew around all 4 sides of the little label and get it sewn down. Don't sew over your pins if you're new to sewing. If you sew over your pins, you're going to break a needle. Pull them out as you go. And we're almost done. I know you don't believe me, but you just need to believe me. All right, so now I'm going to cut the threads on that. And we're going to start sewing our rectangles together. We're going to put them right sides together, that what we want to be the outside facing each other. And we're going to sew around the 2 short ends and 1 long end. And this label is facing up this way, so I know this is going to be the top of my bag, so I'm going to leave this long end open and unsewn. So I'm going to sew along the other end. I normally use about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure I go back and forward at the beginning and the end. Turn my corners with the needle in the down position so the fabric doesn't slide around. So now we have this is all sewn together. So we're going to do the same thing with the 2 pieces of denim, leaving the long side where the handles are sticking out open. I am going to pin my fabrics together because I want my 2 pockets to line up right here and for those to kind of match and not to be off too much. So that the fabric doesn't move around, I'm going to pin it. And I'm going to pin it in the corners. There's a lot of fabric here, so I don't want it to move around too much. So just to be safe rather than sorry, it doesn't hurt to pin everything together. Then we're going to sew it the same way we did the lining fabric, and go a little slow, even if you have a denim needle, because there's a lot of fabric here, a lot of bulk. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end, but at the same time, when I hit where the tops of the pockets are on either side of the bag, I'm going to back tack and go back and forth a little bit there also, just to give it some extra stability and strength. Pull my pins out as I go. I should really have this over here. So that's where the top of my pockets are. There we go. And that is just because what you just heard, the machine struggling a little bit. That's because even though I have a denim needle in here, there's a lot of fabric, so needle down, and we're going to turn a corner. I'm going to make sure I don't feel any wrinkles or anything in my fabric as I go, and pull it if I need to pull the wrinkles out. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to get a flat bottom on the bag. So now we just have a bag like this, but we want our bottom to be square. So you want to take your side seam and your bottom seam, and you want to open up your fabric so that it does this. I have this seam right here, so I'm probably going to use that as a guide. Yep. And I'm going to sew right across here where this seam allowance from the fabric I cut happens to be. First, I'm going to rethread my needle because the thread came out. There we go. All right. So I'm going to sew. My side seam is matched up or eyeballed to the bottom seam, so they're about even. And I'm going to sew just inside of that seam allowance that was on the fabric. I'm going to open up and pull out some of this fabric so there's not so much bulk. There we go. So I just did that. Now let's do the same thing to the other side. lot of fabric right there. There we go. Okay, so now we've done that to both corners, and you can turn your bag, before you cut anything, don't cut anything yet, turn your bag right side out. You may choose to cut those corners off after you've sewn them. If it looks good and you're happy with the way it looks, you may choose to leave it. I leave it sometimes. It adds to the weight of the bottom of the bag, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And now you have a bag like that, yeah? Cuteness. All right, now I got to do the same thing to the lining, and then we're going to match them up. And I'm going to just eyeball it. Let's see. There, all right. Other side. Okay, with the lining, you don't have to turn it right side out. You can leave it the way it is. And place it inside of the outside of your bag. Sandwich them together. Oop, I forgot to cut a thread. Okay. So you have a fabric sandwich like this. So now what we're going to do is we are going to push this out of the way so you can see me. Okay. So now I'm going to go around my bag and I'm going to start at a side seam. And I'm going to turn the top of the denim down about 1/2 inch and the top of the lining fabric down about the same. And I'm going to pin them together at the seam so that the seams match up like that. Then I'm going to come over here to the other side and do the same. Then I'm going to go around the rest of the top of the bag and continue folding the two pieces of fabric down and pinning them together all the way around the bag. Making sure that the lining is just a little bit below the denim. And make sure you have enough room to sew everything down, that you haven't made your pockets too high from the top that you're going to not have room to sew everything down. I'm going to hold it out like that and make sure it looks even across, which it does, and then do the other side. It takes a little effort to do this, and of course some time. But when you're on a budget and or just don't have places close by you where you can go get stuff, this is a good alternative. My grandmother always said to, you know, make sure before you go buy something that you can't make what you need or repurpose something. She was always all about the repurposing. Okay, at the end, when you get to the end, we're going to sew this down, you might have to pull this taut a little bit so you can sew it down without any wrinkles. But now that we have it all pinned, and we're going to look and make sure it looks even and straight, I like it. So now we're going to go around and we're going to sew right along here along the top. Okay, you ready? All right, we're almost done. I'm going to just pick a spot to start, probably over one of the straps. Now when I sew this, I'm going to pull my strap out flat, and when I'm sewing the two fabrics together, I'm going to sew the strap down also and give it some extra stitching so that it stays. I'm going to sew about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the top. I'm using one of the marks on the plate on the bottom of my sewing machine as a guide where to run the fabric so I can make sure my line's kind of a straight line. When you go over the side seams, you know, go a little slow. There's a lot of fabric right there. Make sure when you're moving the fabric around that your needle's in the down position so things don't slide around. Taking my pins out as I go. There we go. Guess what? We're done. So now you have a cute travel art bag. I am going to load it up with a few things and I will show you what it looks like, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now you have a cute travel art bag. I can totally fit a bunch of my watercolor stuff in here. I even have room for my Schmink palette of paints and a couple of different watercolor pads, plenty of pockets around the outside to put tons of brushes and things in, and it's, you know, custom decorated. Plus, because our handles go all the way down and around the bottom, they're really strong and it's really sturdy, so it can really hold a lot. Now, this, of course, the size of this one is based on the Harbor Freight bag, but you could totally make it smaller or bigger. If you wanted, you could put a little flap on the top if you're more of an advanced sewer with some Velcro on it. I tend to really like open top tote bags, but that's just me. So I hope you guys have some fun with this, and you know, I hope it gives you some inspiration to make your own bag and have some fun decorating the pockets before you put it on and everything else. And don't forget to have a great day. Have a great week. Do something nice for yourself because you deserve it. Like make a bag. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.